And good morning. Thank you for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. And my name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. And this is Tell It All Tuesday, where we're going to get into some interesting topics. Yeah, it's been really interesting, and I actually was getting caught up on some news. We are going to get into the summary, I guess, of a bill, really kind of outlining the boycott um, to companies in relation to Israel, and look at that. I'm still trying to find the actual bill, but it was a previous bill that was amended, and like I said, we'll get into that. We're also going to get into DEI and its origin, and I really want to look at is it helping or hurting us, right? And then what I'm going to start off with is, as I was doing some research to put everything together, I came across a video done by Alex Jones. Not that it's a compilation, but and a lot of people may know that this is already going on. This may be old news because this was from the 11th, right? This was from last Friday, and I didn't see this, and it was very shocking. What information came up? So I'm just gonna play the video and let you guys check this out.
Confirm this. I went and looked it up and confirmed it. I saw this last night, and I wanted to wait and check. And a whole bunch of corporate publications, a full day before Charlie was shot, put out articles saying Charlie Kirk was shot and killed, but just the headline. And the people there were chanting, and we have the audio. You hear the crowd, the noise, and there's all the witnesses they were saying. It's kind of like, kill Charlie Kirk. It's like the crazy man that stabbed the Ukrainian girl in the throat. You got to listen real carefully, but he says twice, I got that white girl, but he's in a train, so you have to really listen carefully. But you can hear it in there. I don't know if it'll translate over AM radio out there, probably will on FM, but it's all over actually. You want to see it. And the cheering, yeah, once it happens, yeah, they're looking, yeah, yeah. And so I've got all the postings in the town by leftists and trans people that, hey, he's getting liquidated tomorrow. He's getting dissolved tomorrow. Something big's going to happen. He's going to go bye-bye. And then there's this, and I'll play that and show you this stuff in a moment, but look at this. Let's put this on screen from Amazon. Put the full screen up, please. The shooting of Charlie Kirk. Yeah, blow that up. Why does Amazon have the shooting of Charlie Kirk by Anastasia J. Casey posted one day before he was murdered? And then they updated it, and it's on the Internet Archive. That's been checked. It happened a day, September 9th. So it was already out there, and then they updated it today. Publication date, September 9th. The FBI needs to be knocking down some doors over there.
Those for seeing this all about Charlie Kirk. First of all, I am devastated. I am stressed. I hope he's okay. I was just Googling this, and something blew my mind. This just happened, September 10th. If you look on Google right now, 19 hours ago, posted by New York Times and Los Angeles Times, 19 hours ago, saying Charlie Kirk was shot. 19 hours ago would have been September 9th. Today's the 10th. This doesn't make sense. 19 hours ago. 19 hours ago. Today is the 10th. This doesn't make sense. How could the New York Times and Los Angeles Times report 19 hours ago that he had been shot when this just happened September 10th?
right, great. So do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay. It's 5. Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great. Get down. What the fuck?
Steven Crowder, overnight, he published it about 7 a.m. this morning on X, was given by law enforcement, ATF, DHS, their own internal report that they got the rifle, the shells in the magazine with all the different trans and anti-fascist carvings on it. And they put that out because they're concerned that the information would be suppressed. Just like they released the information within 15 minutes of them being there, to Kyle Seraphin, FBI whistleblower. They told him, because we're concerned they're going to cover this up, 100% this is a shooter, and it was. And just like the Nashville shooter, it would take years to find out it was a trans person if it was left to the FBI old leadership. But they don't wait around now. They're sick of it. So that's good. We got good people more and more in there that have the courage to speak out and get the information out. All right. I want to get to Trump's statement here, but I want to show you something first, okay? Now, Grok confirmed this. I went and looked it up and confirmed it. I saw this last night, and I wanted to wait and check. And a whole bunch of corporate publications, a full day before Charlie was shot, put out articles saying Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. But just the headline. And the people there were chanting, and we have the audio, you hear the crowd, the noise, and there's all the witnesses they were saying. It's kind of like, kill Charlie Kirk. You know, it's like the crazy man that stabbed the Ukrainian girl in the throat. You got to listen real carefully, but he says twice, I got that white girl, but he's in a train, so you have to really listen carefully. But you can hear it in there. I don't know if it'll translate over AM radio out there. Probably would on FM, but it's all over X if you want to see it. And the cheering, yeah, once it happens, yeah, they're looking, yeah, yeah. And so I've got all the postings in the town by leftists and trans people that, hey, he's getting liquidated tomorrow. He's getting dissolved tomorrow. Something big's going to happen. He's going to go bye-bye. And then there's this, and I'll play that to show you the stuff in a moment, but look at this. Let's put this on screen from Amazon. Put the full screen up, please. The shooting of Charlie Kirk. Yeah, blow that up. Why does Amazon have the shooting of Charlie Kirk by Anastasia J. Casey posted one day before he was murdered? And then they updated it, and it's on the Internet Archive. That's been checked. It happened a day, September 9th. So it was already out there, and then they updated it today. Publication date, September 9th. The FBI needs to be knocking down some doors over there. So these people aren't playing games. And it was a big meme out there and a big, we're going to kill Charlie Kirk. Now, guys, put that hashtag up that Rob told me about. There is a hashtag we'll show you in a moment. We'll just show the feed of it. On X and elsewhere. Rip Bozo. And there's a lot of people countering it now with praise, but it's other people celebrating it. We're partying. It's a great thing. Light up them cigars. Rest in piss. You won't be missed. So, yeah, just keep showing it. I mean, these are sick people. We'll show a compilation of them celebrating in a moment. But do you understand? Now let's show this video. Here it is, the shooting of Charlie Kirk, a comprehensive account of the Utah Valley University attack and aftermath, and America's response. These people have a time machine? September 9th, the Utah killing, and they're all there. He's dead. Something big tomorrow. No police on the roof. What the hell is this? Now, it gets worse. Key West just asked, why does Amazon have the shooting of Charlie Kirk by Anastasia J. Casey posted one day before he was murdered? Now, this lady noticed, and people ask me, so I'm responding to them. Alex Jones, something for you to check out. Given this is right up your alley and you have the resources to do so. Wall Street Apes posted this a little while ago. They're credible folks. We checked it, though. It's true. The New York Times and LA Times had articles published about Charlie Kirk being shot before he was. That's how they reported 3 hours before they caught Oswald, that it was Oswald in the Asian papers because they got their times messed up. They reported WT7 was blown up an hour before it was blown up, exactly how it was blown up. Wall Street Apes posted this a little bit ago. The New York Times and LA Times had articles published about Charlie Kirk being shot before he actually was, screenshots and video posted. And Grok checked it and said it is accurate. Grok's findings are at the end of the video. Here is the video.
Those for seeing this all about Charlie Kirk. First of all, I am devastated. I am stressed. I hope he's okay. I was just Googling this and something blew my mind. This just happened September 10th. If you look on Google right now, 19 hours ago, posted by New York Times and Los Angeles Times, 19 hours ago, saying Charlie Kirk was shot.
Let me pause it right there because you guys give me some, comments. But good morning, Patty Cakes. Thank you so much for joining us. And Jay Smooth, thank you for joining us. You say good morning, beautiful Black Americans. And Dr. C says, good morning, founder. Good morning to you too. And thank you so much for reposting the stream. And Cajun Lady says, good morning to my brothers and sisters with her red, white, and blue hearts. And Patty Cakes is saying maybe the time difference. He said it was an article from overseas, right? That was an older article. He was talking about Lee Harvey Oswald in referring to John F. Kennedy when he was shot. And he was saying the time difference is there. What he's referring to now is that the LA Times and New York Times literally posted it 19 hours prior to him being shot. So the thing about it is whenever you post an article, it has a timestamp on it. So even if you were to delete it and you go back in the Wayback Machine, it will go back to the timestamp. So the timestamp was 19 hours before he even got shot. So they posted this on the 9th of September. He was shot on the 10th. It was posted on a Tuesday. He was shot on Wednesday. Yeah. 10th was last week, Wednesday. They posted it 19 hours before. What? And even the book was posted on the 9th. He wasn't shot until the 10th. There was a whole book about Charlie Kirk getting shot. How can you have a book about him getting shot when he wasn't shot yet when you posted the book? You posted the book on the 9th. The event didn't happen till the 10th. Yeah, that is why this is so scary and troubling.
19 hours ago would have been September 9th. Today's the 10th. This doesn't make sense. 19 hours ago. 19 hours ago. Today is the 10th. This doesn't make sense. How could the New York Times and Los Angeles Times report 19 hours ago that he had been shot when this just happened September 10th? Am I crazy? Am I crazy?
Now, in a moment, we're going to play these would be hours long. We played them all, but just some of the celebrations. And these people are doctors and lawyers and nurses and school teachers, mainly. It's a bunch of school teachers in Florida, New York, California, Texas. Just like they celebrated when the girls that were white drowned in the floods. White people, black people celebrating it. And then they don't know, everybody's just posting it, and then they're getting hundreds of calls at their businesses and they're all getting fired. Again, they're disconnected from reality. This is real violence. It's like the people cheering right up in the front row when his neck blows open and blood sprays, and they're like, yeah, like their team just scored a touchdown. Because they've never been in a fight. They've never been in any reality. To them, it's all a simulation, like because they're NPCs. And they're having these orgasmic events of celebration over all of this. So these are really evil, weak, pathetic people, but they've got all sorts of evil organizations.
Okay, so just to read this to you guys. So there was a strange song about Charlie Kirk posted 1 month ago, and somebody posted this on the 10th, and it's on SoundCloud, and it says Charlie Kirk dead at 31. And it was posted a month prior. That, how? How would you post a song about him being dead at 31? Really? Yeah, those are things that need to be investigated by the FBI, because that's not just a guess. Somebody knew something somewhere. Like I had said before, I was like, this is deeper. This is a conspiracy. And I know everybody was like, yeah, Founder, you got your tinfoil hat on. They call me Founder on X. Yeah, I'm a tinfoil hat on at the very beginning of this, because I was like, there was a reason why he was taken out, but far more nefarious than that, somebody knew something somewhere. And I'm really hoping that the FBI can further investigate.
Backing him up. And Podesta wants a civil war to drive Trump and America for power. And then they say they're coming after all of us. They want to do to all of you, normal, decent people, every race, color, and creed that love God and freedom and aren't diseased spiritually like them, they want to kill every one of us. This is a globalist communist attack. When you hear, oh, the left's soft on crime, they're dumb. No. They know defunding the police. They know letting violent criminals out does this. They admit that's their plan. That's the Bolshevik plan. That's the globalist plan. That's how they did it when they took over in Russia in 1917. So there's a manhunt for this person. They say they're tracking him and closing in. They brainwash them that they're victims and you're not accepted, so you need to go out and kill kids and kill society. And when this crazy killed those kids a few weeks ago in Minnesota, people came out in mass and celebrated that as well. You Christians, you deserve this. You Catholics, these are sick people. And they find out they're grocery store managers and lawyers. And none of them know about killing. None of them know, but they sure want to go out and promote others doing it. Here's just a short compilation of the celebrations.
So on behalf of everybody else, I got this shit.
Charlie Kirk was a fucking Nazi. He was a fucking Nazi. And you know what kind of Nazi is the best Nazi? A dead one.
I'm not saying she deserved it, but I'm saying God's timing is always right.
You support Charlie Kirk's shooter?
Sure do. He does all favors.
Would you shoot somebody like Charlie Kirk?
I would have killed him myself.
Charlie Kirk, he wants to be pew pew. That's why he fights so hard.
We got Charlie in the neck. Who's up next?
Empathy is dangerous to society, so no one should give a fuck that he's dead.
Seems somebody just took a shot at one of the Fantafast's favorite 5-mile wide mouthpieces, Charles Chuckle Kirk.
Yeah, I know that it's somewhat object of mockery to say thoughts and prayers, but thoughts and prayers for his family. And they need it from all of us. And Jesse's right. If they could do this, they are capable of anything. I think that was the message. I believe that was the message. It's really hard to radicalize Republicans.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we're not the radical type. But if you thought that you were going to shut a movement down, you're going to get a rude awakening. You woke us the fuck up.
All right. This is just now breaking. President Trump announces he is awarding Charlie Kirk a posthumous Presidential Medal of Freedom. We're all Charlie Kirk now. This is going to backfire, but they're going for it. And they're so emboldened. They believe they're the ruling class. The minions of it, the scum, believe they're our rulers. They believe our children belong to them. They believe our money belongs to them. They believe everything. And now because they see humanity waking up, it's the same all over the world, the left is going into their final form, which is where they were always taking us. So Charlie Kirk, a real man, a real hero in the information war. We salute him and his family. We pray for his family. We're going to support his family. And TPUSA is just going to get even stronger, getting all these young people to register to vote, thousands and thousands of people showing up at colleges everywhere. They were so scared of him. You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Every guest we've interviewed in studio, I've given.
So I just, like I said, I wanted to share that with you guys. Because when I saw it and I came across it, I was like, what? You know, 19 hours before? There's no error in that. Somebody knew something. Somebody wrote a book. And then somebody wrote a song a month prior. And no one said anything. There was no, hey, because here's my thing. You know, the FBI can find somebody that stole a stick of gum from a convenience store. Just saying again. But you weren't on top of that? And it was a month ago? The FBI, were you aware that somebody had written a book a day prior to this man's passing? Like, what is going on? And no alert to the public, no alert to Mr. Kirk before his event? Was there at least some type of, hey, you know, because I hate to say that people get numb to death threats or numb to, you know, other people trying to take away their freedoms with violence. But look, did the FBI, I want to know what the FBI knew and when they knew it. And why weren't we as the public alerted? Like, what is going on? Like, all of this is investigative citizenship journalism. The lady on the video, that's citizenship journalism. You know, the whole thing with the Amazon situation, finding that. Regular citizens are finding this? And we have the Patriot Act? Really? It's stuff like that that really makes me question our government. It really does. Sorry. You're doing this. Either you're not doing your job or you're really trying to mess us up. I'm going with the latter. And Cajun Lady says, sounds like this was planned and orchestrated. It does. And it was like I was saying from the beginning, even like I said, I put on my tinfoil hat. I said that all of this is allegedly, this is just me. You know, before the shooter came out and all this other stuff, I said, this seems very calculated. It does not seem, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And like I said, I came across that video. Now, Alex Jones made that video on Friday, the 11th. So, you know, late last week. Really? I think where I'm stuck at is somebody wrote a book. How do you write a book about somebody getting shot specifically, right? Not a car accident, not a heart attack, not anything, that he got shot and the book was published the day before the shooting even happened. How do you publish an entire book? Now, I understand that, we do have technology. You can write an ebook in literally in a matter of moments and then do the edits and publish it. But this was done the day before. Yeah. And Patty Cakes, I hear what you're saying, with time differences, but no. Even if there were time differences, we are behind a lot of these countries, not ahead. No. It's just it's not making sense. It's not adding up. And it's very sad what's happening. So I wanted to get into the bill. It's not a bill like I thought it was. So I asked it. I said, can you summarize the latest bill introduced regarding companies penalized if they boycott um, Israel? I meant to say not of Israel, but Israel, and the impact that it could have. And they said the most recent federal legislation addressing penalties for companies boycotting Israel is an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026. It was introduced by the U.S. House of Representatives on September 11th, which was last week, and spearheaded by Representative Lauren Boebert. The provision targets the boycott, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) movement by prohibiting companies engaging in politically motivated boycotts of Israel from receiving Pentagon contracts or other federal defense-related funding. So it really doesn't come down to companies. This is more so at a federal level. The amendment was included in a broader $895 billion defense spending bill, which passed the House by a vote of 231 to 196, with the support from 214 Republicans and 17 Democrats. This marks a significant step toward federal level enforcement of anti-BDS measures, building on existing laws that combat foreign-led boycotts against U.S. allies like Israel. The provision defines a boycott as actions intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, or otherwise limit commercial relations with Israel or companies based there, including in territories it controls. It expands on prior federal statutes such as the Export Administration Act's anti-boycott provisions by explicitly barring federal contractors from participating in such activities, with violations potentially leading to loss of contract eligibility. Yeah, so potential impacts. If enacted into law, pending Senate approval and presidential signature, the bill could have wide-ranging effects. So on companies and business practices, firms bidding on or holding federal defense contracts valued at hundreds of billions annually would face heightened scrutiny and risk disqualification for any BDS aligned actions, such as divesting from Israeli settlements or refusing business with entities tied to Israel's policies in the occupied Palestine territories. This could deter corporate involvement in BDS, affecting global supply chains and investment decisions. For context, 38 states already have similar anti-BDS laws, impacting over 250 million Americans and leading to divestments or certifications from companies like Airbnb. Yeah. It's just I don't know. It's so much blurring of the lines. I'm gonna have to actually do some more investigating because I know that there are politicians. I won't call them politicians. We'll just say members of Congress, House and Senate, that have dual citizenship with Israel. They do. They're citizens here and they're citizens of Israel. And so I don't know if a lot of this is stemming from that because we don't have anti-Russian laws. We don't have Italian laws. We don't have anti China laws, right? We don't. But only Israel. It's just really interesting how our relationship is with them. So economic and trade ramifications. Proponents argue it strengthens U.S.-Israeli ties and combats economic discrimination, potentially influencing trade negotiations. Critics, including human rights groups, warn it could chill international business by penalizing compliance with UN resolutions on settlements, leading to lost opportunities for U.S. firms in ethical investing. So, free speech and legal challenges. The measure has sparked bipartisan backlash with opponents like the ACLU and Friends Committee on National Legislation calling it a First Amendment violation by punishing political expression through boycotts, a form of protected protest. Polls show 72% of Americans oppose such penalties. Legal experts predict swift court challenges similar to successful suits against state laws, e.g. in Kansas and Texas, potentially delaying or striking down the provision. Right-wing figures, including Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, have echoed free speech concerns, complicating Republican support. Yeah. See, I remember, I think it was a while ago, but she and Boebert do not like each other. Like, they get into it. I was like, I saw that exchange 1 year on the floor. I was like, ooh, ladies, calm down. So, broader political context amid ongoing Gaza protects and Israelis' military actions. The bill is seen by advocates as shielding Israel from accountability for alleged human rights violations. If the Senate's version, lacking the provision, prevails in conference, it may be stripped. Otherwise, it could embolden similar measures globally while intensifying U.S. domestic debates on Israel-Palestine policy. And here's my thing. Why are we involved in this again? I don't live in Israel. I don't live in Palestine. I don't like what's happening to the people over there, but why are we so involved? That's my bigger question. I live in the United States. I don't live in Israel. I don't live in Palestine, period. This is getting messy. Really, really messy. And I think the next step should be, hey, Israel, you're our ally, but you're not going to influence U.S. politics, period. That should be an automatic shutdown because if Israel's going to do it, then everybody else is going to do it. And then at that point, are we really the United States? Really? Are we really a sovereign nation? Really? It needs to stop. That's just me. That's just my opinion, you guys. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't like it. I am not a fan of this. Now, the next topic that I wanted to get into, and hopefully my tabs are right. I wanted to look at DEI Now, a lot of people when they think of DEI, they're like, "Oh yeah, diversity, equity, inclusion." Well, it came from somewhere. It had an origin, and it stemmed from ESG. And you guys might be like, "Well, what's ESG?" Yeah, yeah. We got to figure out like where this came from because it was almost like, oh, until DEI was threatened, right? Because the last administration was like all DEI, DEI, DEI. Until it was threatened, no one really looked at it, in my opinion, as the downside of it, right? Everybody said, okay, this is just going to enhance affirmative action. And now it's hurting, especially Black people. It's like, I don't understand how you came up with something saying, oh, it's going to help you. And now it's hurting, but it's hurting one specific group out of all the other groups when we benefited the least from it. Black Americans benefited the least from DEI, but now we're inflicted the worst because it's being gotten rid of and everything, the false equivalencies that are being made with it. It's crazy. It's crazy. So we have to take it all the way back. If you guys haven't heard of what ESG is, so the concept of environmental, social, and governance, that's ESG. The criteria emerged in the early 2000s as a framework to evaluate companies' sustainability and ethical performance beyond pure financial metrics. While root traces back further to the 1960s, environmental movement sparked by Rachel Carson's Silent Spring and the 1987 UN Brundtland Commission's report on sustainable development. The modern ESG framework was formalized through the United Nations initiatives. So in 2004, UN Secretary General Kofi Annan invited 18 major financial institutions to develop guidelines for integrating non-financial risk into investment decisions. This led to the landmark report, Who Cares When? Who Cares Wins, right? Connecting financial markets to a changing world, which first popularized the term ESG and outlined how environmental, climate change, social, labor standards, and governance, board accountability factors could influence long-term financial performance. The report argued that ignoring these risks could lead to volatility, reputational damage, and missed opportunities, urging investors to treat ESG as material to fiduciary duty. And we're so, in essence, if you don't use it, there's punishment. If you use it, there's benefit. Basically, that's what it was. But they were adding it in. Yeah, and wanting to force companies to use this. I don't know if anybody remembers a couple of years ago with Chick-fil-A, and they kept talking about ESG scores. Well, their ESG score and their ESG score. Why would you have an ESG score? What is that even? Yeah, it's this: environmental, social, and governance. Companies, in my opinion, should never be doing this, but they got roped into it. Some of them. So building on this, in 2005, the UN Environment Program Finance Initiative, UNEPFI, commissioned the Fresh Fields Report, a legal framework for the integration of environmental, social, and governance issues into institutional investment, which provided the first comprehensive legal analysis affirming that ESG integration was permissible and often required under fiduciary law. So they roped their way in to our corporations. That same year, the UN launched the Principles for Responsible Investment, PRI, a voluntary framework signed by over 5,000 asset owners and managers today, committing signatories to incorporate ESG into analysis and ownership practices. These UN efforts shifted ESG from a niche ethical concern to a mainstream tool for investors. With the UN Global Compact, launched in 2000, further embedding it in corporate responsibility. So ESG scores themselves were not directly implemented by the UN, but evolved from these principles through private rating agencies. So starting around 2007, firms like MSCI, formerly the Carlyle Group, Sustain Analytics, formed in 2008 from mergers of European ESG data providers, and others began quantifying ESG performance using proprietary methodologies. These scores aggregate data on hundreds of indicators: carbon emissions for E, workforce diversity for S, and executive pay transparency for G, into a composite rating, often on scales like AAA, CCC, MSI, or 0 to 100, Sustain Analytics. The UN's role was foundational to legitimizing the framework, but scores are calculated by independent providers using public disclosures, company reports, and third-party data. By 2025, ESG assets under management exceed 40 trillion globally, driven by investor demand for risk-adjusted returns. So DEI as a main component of ESG. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, which focuses on fostering diverse workforces, equitable opportunities, and inclusive cultures, is not the sole or main component of ESG, but it is a core pillar within its social dimension. So the S in ESG encompasses a broad range of human centric issues, including labor rights, human rights, community impact, and employee well-being, where a DEI directly contributes by addressing systemic inequities in hiring, promotion, and representation. It also intersects with governance through board diversity and ethical leadership, and even environmental by ensuring diverse perspectives inform sustainability strategies. So how climate impacts marginalized communities. I heard that one before. Oh yeah, that was a part of the $2 billion grant project done by the EPA. And that $2 billion that was awarded to Stacey Abrams. Part of that grant proposal was how climate impacts marginalized communities. So you can see how DEI, I just wanted you guys, I had to set the stage for this because we're going to get into something else after this, but I got to set the stage for this to see how, yeah, there was a lot going on in the background. And then when they came up with DEI, it was still a part of ESG. Yeah. I was like trying to figure out how did we even get here? So from the outset, the United Nations ESG foundations emphasized social factors like equality and human capital management. The 2004 Who Cares Wins report highlighted social issues such as workforce diversity and fair treatment as key risk for investors, while the PRI principles 2006 explicitly call for incorporating social factors into investment decisions. The UN 2015 Sustainable Development Goals 17 global targets like SDG 5, gender equality, and SDG 10, reduced inequities, further aligned ESG with DEI by urging companies to report on inclusive growth, influencing rating agencies to weight DEI metrics heavily in S scores. So if you've got companies and you say, hey, you got to use the ESG scores, and then you've got DEI, which kind of tips the scales. Either you're going to be higher if you're using DEI more, or you're going to be shot down not using the DEI. Yeah. As you can see, DEI metrics heavily in the S scores. This is the sick part of DEI that a lot of people don't know. They just think, okay, it's just diversity, equity, inclusion. It's just another form of affirmative action. They got rid of affirmative action. What do we do? But DEI is nefarious in its actions, because now that you've got this ESG score, which is kind of like, your FICO score, and they have a monopoly on it because there's only 2 companies rating this. So it's very isolated how they're using it. It could destroy an economy. It really, really could, in my opinion. So in practice, DEI boasts ESG scores, right, brings them up by demonstrating strong human capital management, which agencies like Sustained Analytics and MSCI view as a low risk indicator. For instance, metrics integration, DEI data, gender, ethnic board representation, pay equity gaps, inclusion surveys can account for 20 to 30% of the S score in many frameworks. Per Sustained Analytics methodology, companies like Salesforce have improved their overall ESG ratings by investing $20 million in equal pay audits, tying directly to higher S and G scores. So as you can see, they're manipulating how companies even move and act. Even if, on the downside, and this is just my opinion, on the downside, it may affect other people in a negative way because they're trying to get a higher score. Well, what does that having that higher score in the ESG even mean in a broader sense? Like, what is the punishment, right? Does it affect your loan? Does it affect, you know what I mean? Like, what does it really, really affect? Or is this more of a social, how should I say, a social monitoring, really to control people's behaviors? It could be. So investor and regulatory pressure, over 70% of studies show positive links between high ESG scores driven by strong S factors like DEI and financial returns, including lower borrowing costs and better talent retention. Okay. Regulations like the EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, effective 2024, mandate DEI disclosures, while US SEC proposals, expected 23 to 25, require human capital reporting, including diversity. Now, before I go on, we already know that Trump has shot down DEI everywhere. So how does this affect these companies? Like, he said, okay, that's it. You can't use it. You can't do this. I've just shown you how integrated and interwoven it's been since the 2000s, you guys. And he just came in, he was like, don't use this. And granted, DEI is just one segment of ESG, but it's a heavy weighting score. He doesn't care, right? Because it's just this thing that's getting in the way of the workforce. But people have built their workforces with ESG and that included in it. Yeah, it's a broader conversation. I'm okay getting rid of it, but we got to get rid of the ESG scores. We got to get rid of that. But are we really looking at that? Are they really looking at that? Have they really linked the two together? So the business impact. So firms with robust DEI see 2 to 3% higher annual stock returns via Wharton's analysis of 100 best companies to work for, and reduced risk like lawsuits or boycotts. However, DEI's weight varies. It's not main over the S elements like supply chain labor, but poor DEI can tank scores as seen in controversies over forced labor. Yeah. So critics argue DEI and ESG prioritize ideology over returns, leading to greenwashing or politicization. Recent U.S. rollbacks under executive orders, yet evidence from McKinsey and others substantiates that DEI enhanced ESG correlates with resilience, innovation, and profitability, making it a strategic, not just moral imperative. Okay, so E for environmental, the ESG role, climate, resource management, DEI example. Diverse teams identify community specific risk, pollution in underserved areas, right? So impact and scores, indirect boost via holistic S through E synergy. So this is kind of like the breakdown of what it looks like and how DEI is used within ESG because it's a part of the score. Again, I don't know if you guys knew how this whole thing worked because when you just hear DEI, you don't hear the ESG part of it. You know, and if you're not following the United Nations, would you even know this even existed? Right? So the social implication, labor rights, community engagement under DEI, metrics like percentage of women and minorities in leadership and pay audits. So are you putting women and minorities in leadership to get these higher scores? 20 to 30% of the S weighting high DEI, and it's a lower score. Okay. But you got to have high DEI to have the lowest score. That means your company is not a risk. And how does this affect anything else that you do as a corporation? I'm telling you, ESG is a trip, but nobody's really looking at that part. So governance, board ethics and transparency, board diversity quotas, anti-bias policies, improves G, which is the governance part, via better oversight and MSCI's AAA ratings. Now, when I was working at a particular company, I want to say it had to be 2018. Had to be. It was weird. But in 2018, I want to look at, board ethics. So board diversity quotas. So in California, they basically had it to where if you had a headquarters in California, you had to have at least one woman on a board, right? You had to have somebody be a board of directors, right? That was on your top board. Okay, easy enough. But the law stated, and this was just for California, that even if you weren't a biological woman, it was still okay. Don't you think that defeats the purpose of diversity? If a person can just say, well, I'm a woman too, and they are a biological male, but that would count. That's the kind of nonsense that this is. I'm just saying. I saw it. I saw the law. It's still in effect in California today. You can look it up. I'm not sure of the actual measure that it's called, but that's what that law is in California. Falls under ESG, right? Works in the whole DEI measure thing. So as a company, you're getting, whatever benefit it is. So in summary, the UN catalyzed ESG as a tool for responsible investing, with the S pillar providing fertile ground for DEI to drive measurable progress. While not the main component, DEI is integral to high performance ESG strategies backed by data showing it enhances sustainability and value creation. Right. So I said, based on this information, how did the United States turn DEI into a racial issue that has affected the Black community and other racial groups? Because I was like, this is weird. It's gotten really weird. Oh, and Sassy Lady says, good morning, Dr. Nichols. Good morning to you too, Sassy Lady. And thank you so much for reposting the stream. And she also says, hi, everyone. So hi, everybody, from Sassy Lady. And thank you guys for joining me here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. I know I've just been going. I haven't even played a commercial. I'm just like, look, we got to get into this. So the evolution of DEI into a racial flashpoint in the U.S. So diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives originated as tools to address systemic inequalities rooted in America's history of racial discrimination, including slavery, Jim Crow laws, and redlining, which have perpetuated disparities in wealth, education, and health for Black Americans and other racial minorities. Emerging prominently in the 1960s amid the civil rights movement, DEI built on affirmative action policies under the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Executive Order 11246 in 1965, which required federal contractors to promote equal opportunity without regard to race, color, or national origin. All right. So the Civil Rights Act basically says we don't care what color you are. If you are the best person suited for the job, you should get the job, right? Without barrier. In my opinion, DEI does the exact opposite. It says you got to hire these people based on the color of their skin, or you're going to suffer consequences as a corporation. To me, it just doesn't make sense. But let me read on. So these efforts aimed to remedy historical harms, such as the exclusion of Black World War II veterans from GI benefits, which widened the racial wealth gap. By the 2020s, post George Floyd racial reckoning, corporations and institutions pledged billions for DEI to foster inclusive environments, boost minority representation, and close gaps like the 12% wage disparity for Black workers. However, DEI became framed as a racial issue, often derided as reverse discrimination or anti-white racism through a conservative backlash amplified by political rhetoric, legal challenges, and media narratives. This shift, accelerating under the Trump administration, has politicized DEI as a zero-sum game where gains for minorities, especially Black communities, are portrayed as losses for whites, echoing historical patterns of white resentment during Reconstruction and the 1970s anti-busing era. Critics like Edward Blum and Ward Connolly, backed by groups such as the Heritage Foundation, argued DEI perpetuates division by prioritizing race over merit, leading to lawsuits and bans. By 2025, this framing has tangible effects. Rollbacks in federal programs, corporate retreats, and state laws that disproportionately harm Black and other minority advancement, reinforcing structural racism under the guise of colorblindness. Yeah, it's all messed up. Because, see, the Civil Rights Act was supposed to be, okay, it's merit-based, right? You cannot discriminate against somebody because they're Black or, whatever, right? Not race, color, which always tripped me out. It's like, what do you mean race and color? They're kind of one and the same, right? We say race or color, national origin, but maybe, I don't know, the darker someone is or the lighter someone is, it makes no sense because race is based on color. But if they would have gone in to this 1970 act and said, okay, we're not going to have a caste system. You cannot disparage people according to their race and say that they're, less than, because race actually works against everybody in one way or another. But it always comes back, and I'm just using our country for example, it always comes back to the group that you've been trying to harm the most historically. And I'm not making it up. It is what it is. It's Black Americans. Historically, men and women have been discriminated against in this country, period. We already had a Civil Rights Act in 1866. Then we had to get another one in 1965, almost 100 years later, and it's still not working. So you use DEI to force people to hire Black people. Now, if a Black person is qualified and has a job, it's like, oh, you're just a DEI hire. You're nothing. Still we're having this conversation. That's the issue. I think for me, that's the bigger problem with this whole thing. Because we're really not addressing the problem. The problem is race has created a caste system, and then you want to throw people of color and minorities in there. And we all know what that means as Black people. That's just, you're just dumping everybody else on us. People of color, what does that even mean? Oh, so everybody that has melanin in their skin, now they are marginalized group, right? And then when you say minorities, women are considered minorities. Is that all women or is it just some women? Because if it's all women, then obviously Black people are going to be double dipping, right? With race and minority. Doesn't make sense. It never did. And it never addressed the issue. The issue was you've got people that don't want to hire people that don't look like them. Okay, fine. That's your right to do that. You can do that all day long. But if I start a company and I want to hire people there that look like me, don't get mad. Don't come after me and say that I'm a racist or that I'm a bigot. But you're doing the same thing. But you want to call me the racist and the bigot. That's the problem that I'm having. That's the issue that I'm having. If this is all going to be merit-based, get rid of the privileges that some people are afforded and some people aren't. Stop it. Treat everybody decently if you can find it within yourself to do so. So, key mechanisms of the backlash. So, the transformation of DEI into a racial wedge issue unfolded through 3 interconnected channels. So, political and executive actions, the Trump administration's 2020 executive order on combating race and sex stereotyping banned federal trainings on systemic racism, labeling them divisive and rooted in the false belief that America is irredeemably racist. So this portrayed DEI as an anti-American indoctrination, chilling discussions of racial inequities. In 2025, upon re-election, Trump issued orders like ending racial and wasteful government DEI programs, rescinding Biden's Executive Order 13985, advancing racial equity, and EO 11246, directing agencies to cease DEI hiring and funding and compiling lists of egregious private DEI practitioners for DOJ scrutiny. These moves, enforced by appointees like EEOC Acting Chair Andrea Lucas, reframe civil rights enforcement to prioritize claims from white men, inverting protections meant for minorities. I just showed you guys how DEI plays a role in these ESG scores. So this is why the corporations were holding on to DEI. Right or wrong or indifferent, that's where it stems from. Now I'm like, okay, President Trump, if you're going to manage the DEI, you've got to address the ESG part, which means you've got to address the United Nations where it's even stemming from and root that whole thing out. Because just getting rid of the DEI part, companies may not get rid of it because they've got a score now. Now they've got a label on their back where they're saying, but if I get rid of this, my score is going to go down. I might be viewed as a more high risk company, and I don't want to look bad. I'm just saying. There's a lot more going on than just this. It is what it is. So, judicial and legislative challenges. The 2023 Supreme Court ruling in Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, UNC ended race-conscious admissions, declaring them unconstitutional stereotypes that lack measurable objectives and must end by 2028 per prior precedent. Though limited to education, it emboldened suits against corporate DEI, such as America First legal challenges to NASCAR's diversity goals by racial balancing. By 2025, 10 states, e.g., Florida, Texas, and Alabama, banned DEI in public institutions, citing merit-based arguments that critics say mask efforts to resegregate by denying historical context. Polls show support for DEI drops among those denying white privilege or viewing racism as rare, 46%, linking opposition to racial attitudes. So corporate and cultural retreats, post 2023 ruling and 2025 executive orders, firms like Walmart, IBM, Target, and Meta scaled back DEI amid boycotts and lawsuits, ending racial equity audits, supplier diversity goals, and trainings, pledges worth $50 billion after Floyd's murder. So influencers like Elon Musk and Bill Ackman amplified claims of woke overreach, pressuring boards. This allergic reaction to 2020's reckoning frames DEI as ideological corrosion, not equity. Guys, I know that's a lot. That's a lot down the rabbit hole, but I promise you, I'm building and really wanting to set the stage for where we're going next. But Black people didn't ask for DEI. We didn't. We should have never had to ask for affirmative action, especially after slaves were freed. It should not have been an issue. These people are free. We know that they have work skills. We know that they can work within our nation. What's the problem? Why does somebody being a woman, or why does somebody having a particular skin color, or even a man, like, what is the issue with you just hiring somebody based on the merits? Like, why are we even here? Why are we even here? But we're here because people are trying to use different things, and I will say things, to force companies to hire people. Yeah, I'm going to say force. I'm going to say force. Because, you know, I'm okay if somebody wants to have all black or all white or all Asian. Look, do what you want to do. I don't really care because, see, I have the choice whether to participate in your company or not. I don't have to buy your product. I don't. I don't have to. So if I have a choice and I don't want to purchase from your company, regardless of the product that you're extending, that's what it should be based on, right? Just the merit. Just the merit. But it seems like that's too easy to just be a respectable human. That's the part that's really mind-boggling to me in all this. So impacts on the Black community and other racial groups. The backlash has reversed gains, exacerbating disparities without addressing root causes like the free enslaved gap. 20 to 60% of Black white inequities from Jim Crow. Effects are uneven, but it hit hardest where representation was low. And I'm using Grok, by the way. So I just want everybody to know that. This is Elon's machine. So for the racial group for Black Americans and the key impacts, there was a sharp drop in executive roles, 3% decline in 2023, twice the white rate, lost mentorships, pay audits, and scholarships, higher unemployment risk, 2% gap persists, health inequities worsen, 3 times maternal mortality. So evidence and substantiation, corporate retreats, and racial equity programs. Suits like Tesla, EEOC win on harassment stalled 16 trillion economic loss since 2000 from gaps unaddressed. Now for the Latino company, reduced access to voter info, education, barriers to vaccines, healthcare supplier contracts cut, affecting small businesses. Now it's weird, it says barriers to vaccines and healthcare. They really don't. I mean, unless they're talking about the people that came over illegally, right? That identify as Latinx or Hispanic, because a lot of those individuals, they were exempt from having to get any inoculations when they came over the border. That's why you see a spike in measles and all of these different childhood diseases, because there are some people that aren't vaccinated and they're naturally getting these viruses because there are people that are getting vaccinated. And when you get that vaccine, it's giving you a form of the actual virus. So it enables your immune system to become stronger. That's just what a vaccine is. That's just how it works. But how do they have barriers to vaccines and healthcare when they were given immunity pretty much to not get vaccinated? Right? There's no barriers for them if they're, naturalized citizens here. That's weird. But voter ID studies show desperate a desperate impact. COVID disparities deepened, and IBM target in minority outreach, right? So Asian Americans, internal disparities ignored, low mobility subgroups, model minority myth used to pit against Blacks in suits like Harvard. Aggregate data, mask gaps, SFFA ruling arms holistic admissions benefiting diverse Asian applicants. And then for the indigenous, inadequate data leads to underfunding. Land health access worsened by colorblind policies. Persistent exclusion in reporting. GI Bill inequities echo today. So the other minority groups, they have their issues and the Black community has theirs. So overall, these rollbacks risk a return to quasi-legal segregation per critics by disseminating tools that boosted Black life expectancy via diverse physicians and economic mobility. While some defend the shift as merit focused, evidence shows DEI correlates with lower discrimination suits and higher retention for all. But backlash exploits racial divisions to maintain status quo inequities. Progress requires race neutral proxies like socioeconomic outreach, but without confronting history, gaps will widen. Yeah, they just will. Yeah, we will have larger gaps when it comes to looking at racial inequities. But again, like I said a couple weeks ago, the race system that we have in this country is a caste system. It just is. It is a caste system similar to what they use in India. But in India, it's more so by family name. Here, it's more by the color of your skin. And even in other countries, they use it similarly. I've heard people, my husband, he was in Panama when he was in the military, and he was sharing with me how people with lighter skin in Panama, they were treated better, but the people with darker skin weren't. Sounds kind of like America, right? People with the darker skin aren't as well treated as people with lighter skin, even in the Black community. People that are a little bit more fair skinned are treated differently. It is what it is. I don't like it. It's nasty. It sounds terrible to say it, but it is what it is because that's how we've unfortunately been trained. We've not really had a true merit-based system in this country. It always comes back to race, or it always comes back to somebody being a man or a woman to determine their qualifications, as opposed to let the best person get the position, right? Regardless of their skin color or ethnicity, just based on their education, their qualifications to get the job, and not based on if they're a man or a woman, period. We don't know how to do that in this country. It's very dysfunctional. And we should not have to have laws, right? We really shouldn't have to have laws that have to monitor and tell people how to treat other human beings. But that's what it is. Hopefully we will do better in the future. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to definitely share something with you that I found very, very fascinating. But thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side. Good morning and welcome back to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. And my name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And we have King Copper Tremaine, who reposts the stream, and he says, Grand Rising, everyone. Grand Rising to you too, King Copper. And FBA Goddess says, good morning, family. Good morning to you too. Thank you so much for joining us and reposting the stream. Really appreciate you guys. So in our last segment, we were talking about DEI and looking at somewhat of its origins and its relation to ESG and the ESG scores that were pretty developed within the United Nations. Like I'm saying, that whole thing with DEI is a rabbit hole. It didn't just appear. It came from somewhere, and it's being utilized in a way that corporations were kind of sucked into using it. So now that the Trump administration has said, okay, we're getting rid of all DEIs and initiatives, and in my opinion, without them really looking at why was DEI implemented in the first place, right? Instead of having the knee-jerk reaction going, oh, it's just, one of those woke things. It's like, no, it goes deeper than that, and you need to stop and look at it first. I don't mind you taking it away, but give me the real why it's being taken away, right? Now, a lot of people may say, oh, because, he's racist or because he doesn't like black people. No, that DEI initiative was nefarious for everyone. And it really hamstrung corporations because that ESG score determined their risk level. And again, you'll be like, well, what's an ESG score? So you guys have to go back and watch the show. You will. I will try to find you the best links that I can so you can look into ESG and see how DEI was interwoven into that. And like I said, and how it really played a strong factor in ESG scores. DEI by itself is used, like I said, in my opinion, in a nefarious way. We should, at this point, be able to live in a country where if I apply for a job and I have the qualifications for the job, that should be it. But they want to throw all these other factors in there. Are you a man? Are you a woman? Your name, where does it come from? Are you black? Are you a Black American? Are you from some other country? All of these things, as opposed to why can't I just have the job if I'm the best person for the job? Period. Right? Because we don't know how to do that, and that's dysfunctional, in my opinion. People need to stop being dysfunctional. I'm not going to call it racism. I'm not going to call it prejudice. I'm not going to call it discrimination. You're dysfunctional. You're dysfunctional as a person, and we are dysfunctional as a society when we cannot just take the application of an individual and look at the merits, right? Because we want everything to be merit-based and say, regardless if this person is a male or female, regardless of their ethnicity, this is the best person for the job, period. But we don't want to do that. Because at the bottom of this, that underbelly of sin, is people wanting to keep certain people out of their corporation. And to that, I say, okay, start your own corporation, people that are being kept out, and let the market pick winners or losers. Oh, we don't want to do that. Yeah. Again, we are dysfunctional as a society. I admit it. I won't I won't shy back from that. We are dysfunctional. And I'm sincerely lawless. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. And so I'm going to get into the next part. Now, I came across a video. I'm not going to play the video, but I came across the video of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. And I asked Grok, I said, can you give me the statistics on this statement from Jasmine Crockett? And this, y'all are cutting HBCU funding, dismantling civil rights offices, slashing Medicaid and SNAP, over policing Black communities, yet want us to believe you're helping poor Black people. That was the title of her YouTube video. It's starting with y'all. I need this to stop. But maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. I don't like individuals trying to elevate themselves in a weird way. Like, if that's the way you naturally speak, fine, but it's not. And it just comes off to me as a very unintelligent way to speak and communicate. You can say, are you cutting? Or why are you cutting HBCU funding? Right? Let's ask the question. But you want to put a question mark after making a statement. It's weird. It's weird. So, verification of Jasmine Crockett's statement. So, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett made this statement in a video post on X on September 15th, so that was yesterday, criticizing Republican-led policies Under the Trump administration, the claims target actions by Republicans and the administration that she argues disproportionately harm Black communities, while contradicting claims of support for them. Below, I break down each element with key statistics and context drawn from recent reports, government data, and analysis. These substantiate the claims, particularly in the context of 2025 federal budget proposals, executive actions, and enforcement trends. Where applicable, I've noted counter arguments from Republican sources, framing cuts as targeting waste, fraud, and abuse, or unconstitutional programs. So, cutting HBCU funding, this is something she addressed. She said historically, Black colleges, HBCUs, serve a predominantly Black student population, about 90% Black enrollment, and are vital economic mobility in under-resourced communities. The Trump administration has pursued a mixed but net negative approach to HBCU funding in 2025, reallocating funds while imposing cuts justified as eliminating discriminatory racial quotas. So when the whole thing about DEI came about, and this is why I said I was building, when he said cut those programs, they were still using DEI as a way to get funding for the HBCUs, but also using DEI within a lot of these HBCUs, right? I don't know if these HBCUs are under ESG or not. I don't know, because it predominantly, lied in the corporate realm, as you could see from what I shared with you. So here's a key statistic, and this is just referring to HBCUs. $350 million cut to minority serving institutions, including HBCUs. So it's HBCUs and other minority serving institutions. But when you say minority, you're lumping everybody in. So is this serving women? Is this serving what they call people of color, right? Which would include people that are Latin or Asian or anybody else who claims to be a minority. Right. So in September 2025, the Department of Education withheld fiscal year 2025 discretionary grants for HBCUs and similar schools, citing unconstitutional racial criteria. This directly impacts infrastructure, scholarships, and programs for Black students. Now, we all know that the Trump administration has said, okay, we want to dismantle the Department of Education, right? It's just, we need to dismantle it. It's not helpful. But they took away they cut it by $350 million. I thought the dismantling of the Department of Education was going to, get rid of wasteful spending within the department, right? On programs that weren't beneficial, but the HBCUs have always been at the short end of this. $350 million. Okay. So the U.S. Department of Education, they announced via HBCU Game Day on September 12th. So they announced it on Saturday. So $64 million proposed to cut. $64 million proposed to cut to Howard University, the only federally chartered HBCU. So part of the fiscal year 2026 budget proposal, reducing funding to 2021 levels after a one-time hospital construction boost ended. Howard serves 10,000 mostly Black students in the White House fiscal year 2026 budget, and that was on May 8th. 19 million suspended in Alabama HBCUs due to Trump's DEI ban affecting multiple HBCUs in a state with the most such institutions. And that was from Reddit, Alabama Community Report, February 2025. Net reallocation, plus 500 million to HBCUs, 48% one-time boost. Okay, so there was a reallocation. So offset by the above cuts to other minority programs, total 2025 HBCU invested rises to 1.34 billion, but critics argue it's insufficient given chronic underfunding. HBCUs receive 10% of federal aid despite educating 15% of Black undergraduates. So there was still a reallocation of 500 million, even though the cuts, right? If we can do some quick math, that's 414, 24, 23. So, okay. So a little bit less than 500 million was taken out. And then they rises to 1.3 billion. Okay. So they got that money back, but in a different way. So the Department of Education, and that was reported on the 15th. So the cuts align with Project 2025's push to eliminate race-based funding, harming HBCU's ability to support poor Black students. Republicans countered that reallocations prioritize merit-based aid, but legal challenges are ongoing. Right. Again, like I said, DEI did not help Black people. It's very harmful. And the insult to injury is the fact that there was a time in our country where they didn't want to allow Black Americans to be educated. So that's why we have the HBCUs. We had to create our own schools, right? Now, other schools get federal funding without question. They just give them hundreds of millions of dollars and they just do it, right? But HBCUs have a harder time getting the funding. So now they want to say, well, it's race-based, and it shouldn't be race-based. Now, if it was lineage-based, totally different conversation, right? Because it should be based in lineage, right? It should be, but it's not because we're dysfunctional. Just it is what it is. All right. So dismantling civil rights offices. The Trump administration has aggressively reduced civil rights enforcement in 2025, closing or gutting offices via executive orders and budget slashes. This weakens protections against discrimination, particularly in education, housing, and policing, areas critical for Black communities facing systemic barriers. So 70% exodus from DOJ Civil Rights Division, 250 plus lawyers. So May 2025, the division lost 70% of its attorneys due to redirection toward Trump's priorities, anti-DEI cases over traditional anti-discrimination work like police misconduct probes. So remember when we, in our last segment, when we were talking about DEI and all of its effects and this, that, and the third, yeah. Telling you DEI, to me, it was just a setup to further destroy any type of headway Black Americans have made over, the last century and a half or more. It's a complete setup. So DHS civil rights offices shuttered, 100 plus lost jobs. In March 2025, the Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties was dismantled, eliminating oversight of immigration enforcement abuses disproportionately affecting Black immigrants. Now, here's the thing. That I would have to look further into because it seems like, okay, if we're dismantling civil liberties, because they always claim, religious liberties, and that falls under civil liberties. Why are we talking about, well, this is grok, even though I said Black Americans, you got to pull everything that are affecting people. So it's disproportionately affecting Black Americans. Interesting. I find that interesting because you're not bringing up Latin. It's not helping. It's not disproportionately affecting them. So they're still getting what they need. Black immigrants aren't. So what is that about? As you guys have always heard from me, if you're here illegally, you need to get up off the soil. But are we talking about people here illegally, or are we talking about people that are naturalized? Right? 7 of 12 Education Department OCR regional offices closed. Okay. By June 2025, cuts eliminated offices investigating school discrimination. 91% of cases now dismissed without investigation, up from Biden era norms. So we don't even know what happened to these cases because they were dismissed as, okay, we're getting rid of the offices. We're not even going to investigate this. Well, what do you guys even know what was dropped? Is the DOJ going to pick this up? Because a case is a case. Like, what are we doing? But that's what's happening. So OFCCP Labor Department staffing slashes, hundreds on leave. Okay, so in April 2025, cuts gutted enforcement of equal employment for federal contractors, leaving workers vulnerable to race, gender bias. Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. Okay, those were the sources. All right, so the substantiation, these moves tied to Executive Order 11246, revocation January 2025, dismantled decades of progress under the Civil Rights Act. Black communities who file 30% of discrimination complaints, despite being 13% of the population, are hit hardest. Republicans frame this as ending illegal DEI, but advocates call it a rollback of protections. It is a rollback of protections. Like I said, DEI is so nefarious. And without really truly understanding its origin and even its why, and this might sound terrible when I say this, Black people again are being used for something that's completely working against us. And it actually benefited other people. It didn't benefit us. Not at all. And now you can see it's even making it worse. If we're going to make it merit-based, that's fine. But then you have to give me a way. You have to give me a way of remedy if my rights are violated. What is my remedy? I'm not going to use DEI, and I'm not going to use affirmative action. I'll just use the Civil Rights Act, right? You're not supposed to discriminate based on race, color, or religion, or gender, right? You're not supposed to discriminate. So if I am more qualified than somebody that you decided to hire, why didn't you hire me? And people will come, well, it just wasn't a good fit, and we just weren't sure. Those are all excuses. It should always come back to merit. But it's not. Again, we are dysfunctional. So slashing Medicaid and SNAP. Medicaid covers 25% of Black Americans versus 15% of whites, and SNAP aids 20% of Black households. House Republicans 2025 One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed May 2025 proposes historic cuts to fund $4.5 trillion in tax breaks, mostly for the wealthy. So key statistics, $700 billion Medicaid cut over 10 years, which strip coverage from 13.7 to 17 million, including 4.5 million Black Americans, includes work requirements and eligibility red tape. 300 billion SNAP cut, largest in history, reduces benefits for 41 million recipients. 28% that are Black, averages $1.67 per meal per person, hitting food insecure Black families hardest. The black child rate is 25% versus 10% white. 1.3 million jobs lost nationwide from combined Medicaid SNAP cuts, with black unemployment rising 2 to 3% in affected areas due to economic ripple effects. 225,700 lose Medicaid in New Jersey. Crockett's district example, nationwide 72 million Medicaid enrollees, disproportionately Black and Latino, are at risk. So the bill passed the House May 2025 and the Senate July 2025 along party lines, offsetting tax cuts, adding trillions to the deficit. Black households rely on these for 40% of health/food needs. Republicans deny slashing, claiming fraud reduction, but CBO projects direct coverage losses. Over policing Black communities, Black Americans face disproportionate police contact, searches, and force rooted in biased data and practices. 2025 data shows persistent despite overall arrest declines. So Black drivers search 6.2% of stops versus 3.6% of white. Minor traffic stops, pretext for investigation, disproportionately target Black drivers. 28% of all arrests are Black people that are 13% of the population, right? So use of force, 2 times higher for Black residents per 1,000 contacts versus 1.2 white. Black people are 2 times as likely to face threats, force in police initiated stops. 9.3% homicide victimization rate for Black Americans. Intra-racial crime in segregated, under-resourced areas, over policing for minor offenses diverts from violent crime response. Black youth, 35% juvenile arrest, 15% population, driven by broken windows policing and revenue fines in Black neighborhoods. So substantiation studies show Black neighborhoods are over-policed for low-level issues, e.g. stop searches, but under-policed for emergencies, eroding trust. Only 35% of Black adults rate local police positivity versus 75% of whites. Project 2025 proposals ending consent decrees could exacerbate this by reducing accountability. So overall, Crockett's statement is well substantiated by 2025 data. These policies form a pattern of reduced support for Black economy and social mobility, contradicting GOP outreach. Trump's HBCU's executive order. Black poverty rates 18.8% versus 7.3% of whites amplify the harm. Counter arguments emphasize efficiency over cuts, but evidence shows disproportionate impacts on poor Black communities. For a deeper dive, see cited sources. So, yeah. And they always come after us. I mean, at this point, I'm exhausted. And this is, I think this is why people are pushing for a form of reparations or restitution, to just say, okay, you know what? Give us what you owe us and let us build our economy within our community. Or if they're not going to do that, you guys, we can still do that. We can still build up our economy within our community, but it's gonna suck doing it, right? And obviously, with the way things are positioned, we just can't get caught up. We cannot get caught up. We have to stay focused on doing what we need to do to get the job done. So if that means, okay, you guys, we're going to spend this money, this one little dollar is going to circulate 3 times in our community before it leaves our community, we have to do that as the Black community, period. As you can see, we have no friends. I just showed you how DEI screwed everyone, but us especially. I showed you its origin. Okay. Where it came from. We are used, but hated at the same time. We're not used because people want better for us, even though in our face they tell us they will. But here's my question, Democrats. What are you going to do about it? You had 4 years to help us. You didn't help us. You helped everybody else. You put all the gender issues at the forefront. You wanted little kids to, have all these surgeries. You wanted all of this debauchery and evilness going on. Yeah, that's what you did. That's what you did. So you can't hide from it. I don't want to hear that. You did that. But then you still wanted Black people to show up for you. Why? What you're doing is even worse than what the Republicans are doing. Because you keep telling us you're going to help us and you do nothing. Yeah. Miss Crockett, she had very strong words. I told you he's a racist. So then what are you going to do about it, ma'am? You are in the House, right? What are you going to do about it to fix it? What Republican are you going to sit with and say, hey, this isn't right? If Harvard is getting this, why can't the HBCUs get it? And if they come back, well, it can't be race-based. What are you talking about? HBCUs were established because of the racism in this country. So if you're going to make it lineage-based, then yeah, they have the lineage. Again, Democrats figure out how to fix this. But you don't want that. You don't want that. You want the dysfunction because you love it. You like it. And we know it. And we're kind of over it, by the way. And Only Facts and Truth says, amen. Thank you for that. Yeah, we're tired. We're tired. We're over it. And, one day, things are going to be better. And sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me today. Unfiltered Vision News. We will be back tomorrow with our Women and Wellness Wednesday. We do not have a guest, so it will be open mic. So for anybody that would like to take the mic and, if they have a topic that they want to bring up or any questions you might have, just let me know and I can send you the link and you can be on the show live. But again, I want to thank everybody for joining me here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you on the next one.